Hello everyone, and welcome to today's QLOC Professional Development Scholarship Winners webinar. So I'm Sue Hutley, I'm the convener of the QLOC Workforce and Organisational Development Working Party, the WOD as our acronym says now. So welcome everyone wherever you may be. I'm coming to you from the Gold Coast at Bond University, so I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which I meet, the Yugambeh people, and like to acknowledge all of those also other places where we're all meeting today across our beautiful land. We're going to do a couple of reminders and announcements for QLOC, and then we're going to get into our two speakers for today. So first of all, I'd like to remind you that the current round of QLOC Professional Development Scholarships are out at the moment. I hope that you're putting together your applications, getting your University Librarian stamp of approval and support. So those applications need to be in to the QLOC Executive Officer by the 23rd of November. And if you've got any questions, I encourage you also to ask your University Librarian. So that's the first one. The second reminder is for you to register for the upcoming QLOC University Librarians Forum at QUT on the 29th of November. I'd also like to let you know that our working party is planning a short workshop in the morning of the 29th, and some details of that exciting workshop will be out next week on the QLOC e-lists. So we hope that you can register to attend, and otherwise there will be the Zoom options for the University Librarians Forum on the 29th of November. So as always, we will get straight into our wonderful speakers for today. So today we have Ellen Thompson from QUT first up, and then Tani Pierce from USQ. So I just want to preempt a reminder too that these scholarships are not just for attending conferences, and I think that's why it's great to hear from Ellen today, where she's used this scholarship funding to undertake a visit and a range of other things that we're just about to hear. So Ellen visited the Makerspace at the University of Wollongong, amongst other things. So thanks, Ellen. I'm going to hand over to you.
Okie dokie. Let me remind myself how to share my screen. Everyone see that? Fantastic. I've got nods all around. So yes, I actually used this wonderful opportunity to go down and visit somewhere I'd never been before, in a state I don't often visit, and to have a look at shiny new things that I don't often get to see. So I actually went on a little study visit to the University of Wollongong to look at their makerspace and to meet Nathan, who runs that. Now, for those who may not know me, I'm a faculty liaison librarian and I work with creative industries here at QUT. I am an arts graduate, and as I said, I like mucking around with shiny new things. So I went down to the Gong. There's the view of the steelworks and my entertainment for the night while I was there. I went down there to meet Nathan and to have a look at his wonderful little play space and to get ideas about what we may be doing here at QUT, and also maybe to confirm some assumptions I'd made, and also some decisions or avenues that we weren't progressing. Mainly though, when I meant to meet Nathan, I was interested in specific pieces of equipment, and I wanted to know how he was managing those so that that would inform what we are tinkering with here at QUT. He has some pretty amazing stuff. So while I was particularly down there to look at how he was managing a very specific piece of VR equipment, his Oculus Rift setup, because we have one here at QUT, slightly different setup, but similar issues. He has a wonderful space smack bang in the library, which is full of amazing things, including underneath the cupboards, some old analog equipment here too. But particularly, this is what I was interested in. How is this technology managed on a very grassroots logistical level? How is it actually then used and made available to the Wollongong community? And what could we at QUT learn that as we progressed? So I also wanted to know, well, how does this type of stuff fit in with the library? And you can see here an image. This is in the foyer, the ground level of University of Wollongong Library. Now the makerspace and Nathan himself, he doesn't report to the library. He's not a librarian, he's a technologist. But that makerspace is in the library. So I'm standing in the foyer here looking in, as those students are, who then wandered in to check out what is going on here. So it really is a space full of fun and games that enlivened that area. And I think having all of this stuff close to that library was really quite invigorating. So I wanted to see, how is Wollongong, I guess, integrating equipment, innovative content and stuff into its core business, and then how are they creating momentum around it, because obviously equipment is just equipment unless there are users and content and a need. I was also interested in some really interesting fundamental issues. Who's paying for this stuff? We have our own set of, avenues for funding, etc. here at QUT. I'm sure every university has its own way of doing things. So it was interesting to see who's actually coming up with the money and how sustainable that is. And I guess what avenues, and in some cases, what hoops does Nathan have to jump through to get what he needs to activate this space? So I'm always interested in models of funding and money management. What else was I interested in? Well, of course, I'm interested in that level of support and also the degree of mediation between very complicated, sometimes, pieces of equipment and the users who want to use it. There are lots of models out there. I've yet to find a model, at least in my internet Googling. I've yet to find a model that is fully unmediated. Some models are heavily mediated, where before users can get their hands on equipment, they have to actually undergo training and get signed off, and they have to then use equipment in a particular place. We're taking a different model here at QUT, where I think it would be more useful to the user to have as light a touch and as minimal mediation as possible, and to not restrict the users to designated spaces, but to be more mobile and agile. But of course, there's a service model to consider around that, and what are the logistics of actually making that happen. So I'm always interested in, even if it's just around a single piece of equipment I was focusing on. In Nathan's arena, it's much more complicated. He has a lot more equipment. But I'm always interested in how spaces and pieces of equipment and content are managed, maintained, mediated, staffed, etc. And of course, how then is communication with users happening? And this is fantastic. We're about to have a great big glass screen put up in our games lab, because we don't have necessarily a good communication with users to say, what game is hot, what do you want? I like analog communication. It's there, it's no fuss, and it's very, very direct. And certainly I do like here the warning for no handstands in the planker space. So very interested in analog communication with users, but then of course, what was Nathan doing to connect and communicate digitally with users who weren't perhaps in the space, and to get that feedback about what was actually really wanted. So it's a little bit like, I suppose, a patron-driven acquisition, so to speak, for innovative content. Righto. Now, there's some lovely pictures of what I found at Wollongong. Now we're going to go to the black and white, where I'll speak to some of the takeaways and the professional learnings in the context of this QLOC PD. So here we go. My key professional takeaways. Now this is what I learnt about the profession. It confirmed my absolute belief that the library, and I'm talking academic library, but our academic libraries are probably the most open, egalitarian and solutions-focused service in a university. We're not siloed. We have a helicopter view of everyone in the university, and we don't close doors on anyone. Our client service ethic, our buying power, when you think about the power that libraries have of actually acquiring stuff, our client service, our buying power, and our culture of providing equitable and easy access to resources, I think puts libraries in a fantastic position to quickly and swiftly move into fill gaps that perhaps other parts of a university are a bit slow or a bit too siloed or procedure bound to actually make a move on. That's what I'm seeing, I think, here at QUT with the library. We've found a gap, and I think there's an opportunity for us to fill that gap. Maybe not permanently, but certainly until the university gets its act together. What did I learn about my profession? Well, there is, I'll flick back, there's a downside to it. And yes, despite wanting to be agile, the academic library is a very large and complex organism, and we are very procedural driven often. So I think when I say we, I'm probably speaking on academic libraries in general from conversations I've had with colleagues around the fact, I think we can do a lot more still to move faster. There is a lot of work being done, a lot of thinking being done about being more responsive, more agile, more being swifter to take up opportunities and to remove barriers, particularly to enable staff at the grassroots level to get on with stuff and not have to jump through unnecessary hoops. A lot of work's been happening in that area. I know it's happening here at QUT, but I still do sometimes feel at my level that our practice has yet to catch up with the rhetoric that's happening. But that is certainly, it's a different world than it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago even. Okay, my personal takeaways. Growth mindset is something that we are thinking very strongly about here at QUT. I'm a mid to late career librarian, and I'm very happy to find out that yes, an old dog can learn new tricks. I'm an arts graduate, I'm not a technologist, I don't have a computer degree, but I've been empowered to get my hands on kit and have fun and to learn, and I'm so delighted that I can. How surprising. My issue now though is I like having fun with shiny things, but I also have a tendency to get bored quickly, or certainly bored when things get a bit tough. And it moves from play to actually, let's strategize this. So one of my personal takeaways is I need to think a little bit harder about my own skills and abilities in being an influencer and an advocate for service development, how to get the ears of the bosses, so to speak, and turn an interest, an experiment, a hobby, so to speak, actually into a service, in inverted commas. So yes, I'm often all enthusiasm and sometimes no stamina. So there's a personal takeaway, and you know, this visit QLOC, it enabled me to come face to face with that. Application to my work, and yes, it has. I went to Wollongong to find out how to do things from people who are doing them and done them, who are a year or two ahead of where we are. I was so pleased to know that some of those hunches and guesses at the very beginning I'd made were right. I was pleased about that because my bosses put up decent amount of money based on some hunches. It's always nice to have those hunches ratified, but it's also very good to know that there is no failure. To quote my Associate Director, Kim, there's no failure, there's only learning. And that is very nice application to my work to become a bit more fearless. And of course, nuts and bolts, I have some detailed information from someone who's treading the path a few months, a year, 18 months ahead of where we are, to help out and not to reinvent the wheel. And having a new pal to play with is fantastic. And I hope to see Nathan again and check out what else is in his play space next May at Theta. So the ability to collaborate and to make personal communications was a fantastic opportunity. I went to a uni I would never have probably gone to, into a state I seldom visit. Applications to my library, and this is a big one. Things in VR and AR, virtual reality, augmented reality. It's maturing quickly. In fact, it should be maturing quickly. That's how quickly I did this presentation. Very quickly, and I was surprised to find out just this morning when I'm looking at RMIT's new online courses, professional development courses in VR. It's going to be a $200+ billion industry in the next few years. So it's already a multi-billion dollar industry. I'm surprised when I look around the university here of how little I can see of this technology. Why is it not touching our world, our library world, more? This is massive out there. Where is it here? And that is something I learned, and I remember our MC for the day, Sue, actually asking that question of a lot of people. Where is this? Why are we not engaging with it? Why is it not coming into our universities in a more open, accessible way? And often it's around our staff and students getting hands on this stuff. Some of it is expensive equipment, it's complicated equipment, it takes a lot of weird and wonderful ways to manage, and this stuff doesn't fit well with the proceduralized procurement avenues and processes and fun codes of a big institution. It's hard for the average student or staff member to get their hands on stuff to test. So I think that is our opportunity. We're in the business of providing equitable, easy access to resources, whatever resources are needed by our community to do their teaching, their learning, their research. And I think that can very much run to some of this innovative equipment and along with it, the innovative content. It's not only an opportunity, it's also a challenge, because along with that, this cutting edge stuff, comes the burden of skills development and capacity building. And I'm talking about within, say, our library, within our workforce as well. Applications to QLOC. Well, I think there's a University Libraries Forum coming up, and I know our university librarians will get together and talk, and that information sharing about this stuff and what the libraries can do happening at that management level is going to, I guess, permeate down and start to give solid direction and strategy to the folks at the grassroots who are also trying to get together a community of practice. I know pockets here and there of what's happening, say, at USQ, out at Ipswich, of what's happening around, but while we have a little community of fledgling community of practice here at QUT, it's quite silent. And I'm not aware, or if there is a community of practice around VR and AR implementations within the academic library sector. If it's there, I'm unaware of it. And I'm wondering whether QLOC, as that umbrella, our organisation can perhaps help facilitate that community of practice. And then also use its connections to facilitate collaboration beyond our immediate membership. So I kind of found University of Wollongong and Nathan by chance, because he was listening to a webinar, an earlier webinar facilitated by USQ that myself and Sarah did, chance meeting. So how can we actually do more collaboration beyond the borders of our own states and our own sort of institutions? So I think QLOC can certainly help grow some momentum there as well. Oops. And that, my folks, is essentially where I'm at and what I got out of my amazing trip to the Gong. Thanks for listening.
Ellen, thank you so much. That was a great presentation. And I think I also wanted to thank you for your key personal takeaways. I think that was really brave of you also to have that self-reflection. And I'm hoping that the people who come along with scholarships in the future not only get inspiration from that, but also inspiration to put in for visits as you've just done. So I'm going to, I think, move on to Tani next, and then what we're going to do is questions at the end today, if everyone's okay with that. So introducing Tani Piss from USQ. And Tani, though, sounds like it's going to be a really interesting presentation because the Open Textbook Institute is certainly a very current topic. And I'm sure Tani is going to tell us the wonderful time, but also the many learnings that she had over there. Thanks, Tani.
Thanks, Sue. I'm hoping you can all see my slides. I'm not sure if you can see the right view of my slides, so I might...
We can. I think we're okay.
How's that? Good. So I'm hoping... okay, I'll get started. My name's Tani Pearce. I'm the Associate Director of Content at USQ, and I was lucky enough for QLOC to contribute funds towards a trip to Minnesota, which I had never thought about going to before, to go to the OTN Summit and Institute. So that was at the end of July. And basically, for those who don't know where it is, I had to look it up. It's a very cold spot in America, and we were actually out of Minneapolis in a small country area called Chaska on a beautiful lake, and Minnesota's known for its lakes and its heavy snowfall, and they're starting into that time of the year now. Just for those who don't know what the Open Textbook Network is, it's made up of a few key there's a few key strategies and initiatives that they've undertaken, and it started as a really small grassroots community, and it's grown. So the network, and I encourage you to go and have a look at these websites. It's a group of 787 institutions, mainly in the US. USQ is the first Australian member, and there's also some institutions that are members in Hawaii and the UK. And basically, they work together as a community to share information. They have a lot of content, and I was amazed at the content, and I'll tell you about that as I go along. They also produce the Open Textbook Library, where there's over 500 open access licensed texts available. And they have recently started an open publishing cooperative that does focus purely on textbooks at the moment, but is transferable to other open type initiatives, and I'll again tell you a bit about that as I go along. So I was particularly keen to go along to take advantage of this network. So this is just running through the membership, mainly in the United States. So you'll notice in that previous slide that there's institutional membership and consortium membership in the US. So USQ has an institutional membership, but it seemed to me from talking to the participants at the Summit and Institute that the consortia approach was the way that most institutions were embracing OTN in the United States. This is just showing us in the bottom left-hand corner, a tiny Australian representative. So basically the Open Textbook Network, as way of an introduction to, is mainly represented by libraries. There were a few educational designers at the Summit and Institute, but I was amazed by how many librarians were there, and also the number of positions that were purely open access focused too. So you had a lot of open access librarians in attendance, and it was really interesting to talk to those people about what their roles entailed. So the aim of the Open Textbook Network is to use open content to help higher ed achieve its public good mission. And that sounds very lofty, but we had the discussion at the Summit that this is the bread and butter of our strategic plans. And I thought, I don't know if it is. And I went back and it is definitely clearly stated in the USQ mission, as I'm sure it is in your institutions, that we do contribute to the community and the public good through what we do. So it is very much in alignment with what we're trying to achieve. So at USQ, before my attendance at the Summit and Institute, we did have, as I said, we've been members for now a year and a half of the Institute. We were lucky enough to have David Ernst, who's the Executive Director of the OTN, come to USQ. And some of you might have come along to his USQ Salon, which is like an online lecture. It's online if anyone wants to look at it about what OTN is all about. So I put in for this travel and the Summer Institute because I was quite impressed by David's approach, and I wanted to learn more about this community, and they seemed very, and to take some of Ellen's words, responsive and agile in their approaches, and that interested me too. So the OTN is really based on community, and underpinning that community are a range of different approaches. So they've got strategies. They're action based. They want to get publications out available to the community. They've got best practices. So all of this is CC, or the majority of these things are CC licensed. They've got shared, they call them shared solutions, where they share their approaches to get buy-in in their faculties, and they share their PowerPoint slides and videos they've made to promote their open textbook campaigns. And within the community, there's also groups who are focusing on pushing forward the Open Textbook Network. And I'll talk to you about those later as well. I was able to go along to some of the working groups and hear what they're working on, which was fantastic. So those long 11 slides were just an insight into what the OTN is, but the actual event I attended was the Summer Institute Summit. So there were two different activities. So for 2 days there was an institute, and the next 2 days was the summit. And the institute was for new community members, which was great for me. So it was for those people to meet, to get a good understanding of what the network was, but also, in essence, it was a train the trainer. So it was instilling in you the knowledge, but also the ability to go and present workshops to your academic staff and your professional staff back at your institution about why open access is important, how open textbooks work, how you can tap into them, and what steps you can take to either support them or actually, give them a go in your courses. The OTN Summit was a meeting of all of the members of the OTN. So not the newbies. The newbies were the first 2 days. We all came together in the last 2 days. So it was really good for me because I met people who were at the stage where we are at USQ at the beginning of getting open textbooks up and running. But then I also met some really inspirational people at the summit. So those 4 days were full on, but they were fantastic for me. Okay, so as I said, sorry, I'm going backwards and forwards. The Summer Institute was made up of like a train the trainer. So the workshop strategy, and they've actually got a strategy that David Ernst, the CEO, is an education designer in background, and he's honed this approach and thought about the context and where the stakeholders who are coming along to these workshops are coming from, and tried to really tweak the approach to tap into why they're there and what could assist them. So the workshop Train the Trainer we had was aimed at academics, and we were there as academics, so we had to think about why, what would be the motivations of an academic from a new grad or a first year academic through to a seasoned academic, and how we could reach that audience and get them to consider open textbooks. So basically the strategy is that you talk about the worth of those textbooks, why they're useful, why there's a need. You actually conduct a workshop, a hands-on workshop looking at what the options are, and then you actually encourage the attendees to review, and that's a big part of the Open Textbook Library. It's got a peer review component. So we actually went through the workshop step by step, and during that, David stopped many times and explained why that particular approach was taken. I gained an insight into how different the context in the United States is with regards funding and costs at universities as well. It's interesting, each state has to actually be able to report on how much a textbook should cost. Textbook costs should, sorry, I've tied my words there, how much textbooks should cost a student per year. We have nothing like that down to that detail here, but students can actually compare state by state and within that state institution by institution as to the expected textbook costs. Here we don't have that kind of data available, but it is relevant to us. There was a Universities Australia survey recently that said that 1 in 7 students go without food or other necessities because they can't afford, costs at university, and they do include, as we all know, textbooks. And the reasoning behind this workshop approach is David goes through that data with the group and says then there is one thing that we can actually assist you with, or we can control to assist students, and that is the cost of textbooks. We can't help them with rental assistance, we can't help them with their food, sometimes we can, but we can help them with text costs. So basically this workshop strategy has been quite successful. They've had, basically, they train centrally the attendees at these institutes, and they go back to their own organisations, and as you can see there, most of the workshops are given by the members that have had this training, and from the workshops they've kept very good evidence in the United States, and they've got 45% people adopting open textbooks, which is pretty good, I think. So that's the strategy that they schooled us in, I guess, but underpinning that was, you know, current research as to why this is a helpful approach. So the University of Georgia, for example, recently, or I think it was around June, released this survey where they could actually go into the detail of the impact of going from an open access resource to, from a non-OER to an OER, and Pell eligibles like HECS eligible in the United States, but the grades actually markedly went up. We don't have a similar study in Australia, and that's something that came through to me whilst attending this, is that we really need to work on that evidence base if we want to get take up of open access. Okay, the next slide. As part of the workshop too, I mentioned that there is almost like it's almost like an information literacy session on how to access these open textbooks and how to understand the licensing behind it without too much detail, because you don't want to scare people off on the first run through. But you know, there's hands-on of how to find things in the open textbook library, what it includes. So a breakdown of books per subject area, being quite open that at all times, and I know as librarians we do this, that we're not the purveyors of the quality of the text. The academic is, because they're using it in situ of their course. So it was really a demonstration of what's available, like the OpenStax textbooks, the Kali collection. So there's a lot publicly, or not publicly funded by, but there's a lot of philanthropists actually backing open access initiatives in the United States. So the Open Textbook Network is funded by the Gates Foundation, and there's a few other things I'll talk about later that are funded again by other bodies like that, which we really don't have that available here at the moment, unfortunately. The other thing in the workshops that we talked about was peer review, and that's the big thing with open access. And you know, we all are asked about the quality of any open access materials, and rightly so. The open textbooks in the open textbook libraries have review criteria that academics who come along to these workshops are encouraged to complete. So we did this at USQ last year, and following the United States model, we actually offered $200 per review from academics. So it's actually a way where they use set criteria, and they go online, put their name to their review, but actually makes them have a look at the content. They might think it's not great, and that goes up there too. A bad rating always, continues to be available via the Open Textbook Library site. So it's going through that workshop, understanding from an academic's point of view, why open textbooks would be useful for them. We had a good discussion on how to deal with the curly questions or the difficult questions that come up in this environment too, and that was really handy. But just taking on that mindset of the academic and the possible wariness about the quality and things like that was a really good thing to discuss. It was also good to discuss what some of these quite seasoned open access librarians do, or liaison librarians do, when they're having those discussions, and what's been successful for them. And at the end of the workshop, I guess there's a call to arms to academics, and we were in that academic role. So to take a look at the Open Textbook Library, write a review, adopt if it suits you, don't adopt if it doesn't. You actually make the final call on quality, and share the news about these open access textbooks through your faculty. So that's a very long-winded description of what I did in the Institute, but really it was getting a really good understanding of what the Open Textbook Network is, and also the approach they take to getting the word out there. And I think it's a good approach, and I think they've tested that approach. The second half of the event was the summit, and this was very inspirational. So all of the community got together. The summit has been running for 4 years, and I think it started with 20 people, and there are about 150 people this year. So that shows how quickly the Open Textbook Network is growing. So basically, at that on that side of things, we heard about how the Open Textbook Network is moving forward, and just for a quick overview of that, what I found fascinating was the networks that the Open Textbook Network has created in the industry. So everything from, you know, Spark to Creative Commons to relationships with some actual commercial vendors who assist with publishing platforms like Pressbooks. They have an agreement, or they've been working closely with ACRL to produce an OER bootcamp for liaison librarians and outreach librarians. So that has just been launched, I think, but I'm really keen to see if we can get that content in Australia to tap into that. And it will all be Creative Commons licensed, because that's the environment in which these people work. The OTN also has seen a need for publishing pathways. So they've moved, or they're moving on from just having an open textbook library to a publishing cooperative where you can explore what other institutions are doing and you can share approaches. And I would recommend you have a look at these sites here, particularly the Rebus community. It's a spot where you can actually have a look at that link that I've got there. I won't open it up because I'll break something, but you can go in and have a look at other open access projects internationally, see what's going on, and they actually ask for collaboration. So it's a great spot if you've got an academic who's interested in open access publishing, or, you know, contributing a chapter, or is interested in creating something. They can have a look there and see what's being worked on at the moment. I'm currently working with an academic who's creating content for a coding book, a coding textbook, and there's one on the Rebus community, and she was quite interested to see what they were doing there. Something else I got out of this part of the event, the summit part, was that there's a number of publishing resources out there, Creative Commons license, that are available to everyone to access. So definitely have a look at that too. And there were some great guest lecturers at this part of the summit too, who have ties to that OTN community. So Professor Rajiv Jhangi, I said that wrong, I apologise, spoke about the Open Pedagogy Notebook, which I hadn't heard about before, but it's a site that pushes open access further, and it doesn't just talk about, as that quote says, access. It talks about how we use that information to create knowledge, to work with students to do that. So he had some fantastic examples of recreating content on Wikipedia pages as part of assessment pieces for medical students. So I found that amazing too. It just pushed that forward. It just wasn't about the content, it was the application of that content. He's actually coming to Queensland in mid-November, and USQ is having a salon called Student-Centred Learning with Open Education. It's free for anyone to attend. So if anyone's interested, I can send you the details of that to attend that from anywhere. And the other information talks, and this is a Mississippi River where Minneapolis sits on it. It's a happy snap. There were lightning talks. So members of the community have projects every year, or just report back on how they're going. And there are a number of things discussed, and I found that so useful. You know, how you deal with those discussions about licenses. How do you get uptake? Because that's what I'm finding at the moment. How do I get that momentum? Once I've got a few academics interested, how do I grow that? There were also interest groups where you could go along and talk on particular subjects. So the interest groups that most interested me were on publishing, on consortia, because I can see that consortia would be useful, a useful model in Australia to these kind of activity for these kind of activities. And also there were interest groups on things like engineering texts. There's not a lot of engineering texts in the open access world. How do we remedy this? And, you know, I sat down at a table because we have quite a strong engineering research bent at USQ, particularly agricultural engineering. I sat down with people who said, oh, our academics are working on that. You know, give me a couple of names and they can be in contact about writing some content together. So it's not just the library world, it's branching out from the library world and looking at opportunities. So now I'm finally on to what I should be talking about after that rundown of the Institute and the Summit. My key professional takeaways from the experience, and it was an amazing experience for me. Firstly, community is key in anything, but in this open access world. So this is a picture taken on the last day of the Summit. Please don't look for me, it's bad. But basically the amount of experience in that group of people was amazing. And I've got a quote down the bottom there they've got a managing director of the Open Textbook Network, and it really spoke to me because I got there and thought, oh my goodness, these people have done everything. And after discussing things with people, I realized they hadn't done everything. Like, everyone was at different levels. And she's spot on when she says, you're not behind. This is a new movement in education. You're here, you're thinking about it, and we're all moving forward together. And that's what I found from this community. Everyone was happy to share information. Since coming back, I've had so many emails from people sharing or asking for information about what we're doing at USQ now. We've got an incarcerated students program that heavily relies on open access for some units. People were fascinated with that. So, you know, Australia has a lot to give too in these areas. I also learnt that it's very important to understand the different community stakeholders, everyone from professionals, support professionals, from the librarian to the educational designer, to the funders, to the bookshop, to the academic, most importantly, but also as part of this whole approach, openness thrives in an atmosphere of collaboration. So there's no closed doors in this network. Everyone's happy to share. So that's my big one. But I also found that, I've said this already, understand your stakeholders. Academics are the final judge of the quality of this content. So one of the attendees said, I stood up in a forum for my school and I said, this content's amazing, this psychology content, this textbook is the best I've seen. And the academic said to him, how do you know? You're not the expert. So we have to remember who the expert is. It's really easy to get quite evangelical almost about open access, but you've got to be smart about your approach too. And I think that's what those workshops gave me, a considered approach to the topic. And including, don't demonise people who don't want to take up open access textbooks, because they may not, we know they don't fit all applications. And finally, we need to build, as professionals, we know we rely heavily on evidence in our daily lives, but we need a better evidence base for open access. We need to know if our students are struggling with payments, if our academics, you know, who take up open access textbooks see some evidence of improvement, or have qualitative or quantitative evidence, you know, from students as to how they're affected. And surveys have been undertaken at some of these OTN United States-based institutions that are freely available. So I'm looking at working with my director to see if we can do something along those lines next year. Key personal takeaways. These are quite simple. Be brave. I had not travelled overseas on my own since I've had children. So, you know, it was a bit scary going to and I'd never been to the United States. And when on my first day, I realised I was the only international at the Institute and Summit. So, but, you know, it was a great experience and I learnt a lot. So about myself too. Build a bridge. Sorry, I tried to tie it in with my cheesy photos. You know, talk to everyone. I had so many fascinating conversations by, you know, just saying, oh, where are you from? What are you working on? And again, that brought back to me that we are all at different levels within uptake of open text, but I could learn from everyone. And lastly, I I had time to think. I didn't have time to sit by the lake, sadly, but I have a very busy work schedule, as I'm sure you all do, and even just the time on the plane enabled me to think through some of the issues I'd learn about. So I think that was one of the most valuable things for me personally. And moving on to some of the other things I learned, applying what I've learned at work is I know I need to build that open access community. We are really trying hard to do that at USQ, but we need to do a lot more. And I need to work with that community to understand our stakeholders, build networks with them, and also devise a pitch about what open access textbooks are and what open access is, because sometimes we assume everyone knows and they don't. At the moment, I've managed to get some funding that I need to spend before the end of the year to work on some actual hands-on applications in the library. So we're developing an open content development framework, which is really, it's great because there's so much content already out there that I can tap into through the OTN. We're renewing our membership. We're undertaking the process of subscribing to Pressbooks. Some of you would already subscribe because we've got 2 textbooks we're working on and we're hoping to push them out through Pressbooks. I want to gather that evidence, and that'll be ongoing into 2019. Build capacity, so we're going to have more staff training about open access and open access textbooks. We're forming a USQ open content development community of practice. That's a mouthful, but it's the support people. So it's actually with academic representation, but I'm in the education portfolio. So drawing in education designers, librarians, acquisitions people, cataloguers, people who are involved in that process to get that information out, and also, ICT people. So building capacity. And drawing in things like bibliographic records into our library catalogue. QLOC-wise, I did speak at the QLOC e-textbook Strategic Directions Forum about open textbooks, so I apologise for those who've sat through that already. And I am really keen to look at opportunities to collaborate within QLOC, because I think many institutions would be interested in tapping into these kind of approaches. I think there's a lot we can learn from the OTN approach. So that's about it. This is the native food of Minnesota. It's fried cheese curds. But I thought question mark when I saw it, but this is the time if anyone has any questions. I'm not sure, Sue, if I should call for questions.
Absolutely. So everyone, let's have any questions for Tani now. And Rachel Harrison, our wonderful executive officer, will help us Q&A. So you can either chat or Q&A, I believe. And if you can send your messages to the group. So while those other people are typing away, Tani, congratulations. That looked like an excellent experience. And again, I really appreciate your personal reflections. I know that some people attended the textbook strategy forum and things like that. I just wondered if you could share just a couple of things about where you felt was the right place to start for, academic libraries and academic institutions, and whether people gave some tips on that.
There were 2 things really that came through, or 3. You need to know who can give support and make sure people have the capacity to. So it's good to go out and offer this open textbook option, but often academics will want to change things. So you need to know that you have those support people in place before you go out and offer that service. But it's also talking about the options too. You can create, you can reuse, you can repurpose, or you can use as it is. So that's one, just making sure those support people are there. The second item was, I've lost the plot, but was getting the evidence. So being able to sell open text, because if you don't know that there's a need, or you can't show that there's a need, there won't be interest. And the third one was get some really enthusiastic takers on board. So get some points on the board, and then it'll mushroom from there. So David Entz said he only got 2 textbooks in the first 2 years of being involved in the network, and then it went to, like, University of Minnesota is one of the biggest publishers of open access textbooks now. So it's the first, and I can actually agree with that. The first year and a half, I haven't got a lot happening, and we should have 2 up by the end of the year, and then it'll snowball hopefully from there. Touch wood.
No, that sounds good. I think, again, just getting your head around the small numbers, but also the other ways. And I have a feeling there's some good research projects on the cards for you, Tani, and your team. And we are all actually watching and hoping that USQ can help us lead some of that open textbook aspects. I'm also, I guess, interested in both of you, and I'll turn to Ellen now. It's just that sort of community of practice amongst particular expert groups. And Ellen, do you want to talk a bit more about where you see that, I don't know, this community of practice of maker spaces in academic libraries? Is that what you were sort of referring to?
I think we're a community of practice of people who are tinkering on that cutting edge. I just feel like there are dots that need yet to be joined up a little bit more clearly, just so that we know who's doing what where. And it's can be quite a burden with some of this stuff. It can be quite a burden to learn and to tinker, and even amongst my institution, which is really quite large. It's strange. This type of stuff can sometimes be seen on the periphery of what is real work. And I'm finding it can be a little bit kind of lonely to push into this area. And so getting some more momentum and getting more interest even within the organisation, convincing folks that this type of content, this technology is probably, it's core business out there in, for instance, primary and secondary education. Our students are going to be coming through in a couple of years where this is ubiquitous in their lives, and we're going to be behind the 8 ball. And I think we just need to join the dots a bit and make the foray into experimentation a little bit more seamless, a bit more supportive. I think there is a community out there, and I think we just need to get those conversations together. Just make it a bit easier.
And is it similar, like to, sorry, can I ask a quick question? Is it similar to open access where you've got to get those academics engaged and using it, and you get some uptake and then it snowballs from there?
Yeah. I think it's a case of where something is so new, it's hard to get sort of traction or attention in people's busy lives until there's that hook. Tell me what this is and how I can use it. How will it make a difference to my lives? And I mean, in some respects, there are folks out like in faculty who get it and who are saying, yes, please bring it on. I've been waiting for years to get my hands on this stuff. But look, even within the library and the staff themselves, amongst the busy life and the usual core business, to as yet while it's sort of experimental, it's to find that hook to even convince a colleague to answer that question when they say, tell me how this is going to interest my academics. Tell me how this is actually going to make a difference. Tell me how this is not a toy and how it can be core business. So we're still, I think, growing that. For us, I think in libraries, we have to transition from fad to service. And I think that's where I'm sort of struggling a little bit, and that we possibly are all trying to do that individually. And I think the whole can be greater than the sum of the parts. So just that wider, stronger community. Momentum is yet to be built.
That's right. Well, ladies, thank you. And we hope that you both can continue with your experiences, your research, and also, again, keep on sharing what you've learnt. So thank you to both of our speakers today, to Ellen and to Tani, and we look forward to the next chapters in your adventures. To conclude today, just a reminder that we have one more of these webinars, which is going to be on Wednesday, the 13th of November. It is a Wednesday, I think. So 13th of November. Again, reminders about scholarships due and other QLOC events happening. So this webinar will be recorded, and we hope that you've enjoyed it, and we will see you next time.